there, Stampers. This is Sherry Roth with Stamped Treasures. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada, and I am excited to be here to share with you a fun little mini album created using 3 standard size card bases. So we've got it decorated on both sides, and the base of the album is so simple. It is just created using 3 card bases. So these are 5.5 by 8.5. However, you don't need to use this size cardstock. You can use any size cardstock or pattern paper to create the base, as long as all three pages are the same size, and just fold it in half. All right. Okay, so let me go through what I'm going to use. Now, to keep things simple, I'm actually going to use products from the Cozy Christmas October 2025 Paper Pumpkin Kit. So if you're not familiar with Paper Pumpkin, it is a crafting subscription kit from Stampin' Up! Every month you get a box delivered to your door, and it includes everything in it to create whatever that month's projects are. For the most part, they are cards, and this month we got the supplies to create 3 each of these cards. These 3 cards here. Aren't they beautiful? I absolutely love them. And you probably can't tell on the video, but there's flocked detail on the accents as well, which is so fun. All right, so because this is about sharing how to make the album and not so much the details, although I'm going to go into the details, I kept it really simple, and I kept the decorating part very similar to the cards. But I will walk you through the extra products that I use and how I change things up as we go. We're going to create this same album start to finish. So this is what it looks like. And then this opens up to reveal a little journaling spot. You've got 4 spots for photos on here. And then there's some decorative bits. So you can see that you can basically choose any product and decorate it as if it was a card, because it's the same size as a card. It's 4.25 by 5.5. So just treat each decorated panel as a card, and you've got yourself a beautiful little mini album to gift. All right. And it stands up like this. You can have it facing in either direction because it's going to be beautiful in either direction, or in any direction. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. So I have got 3 card bases. So on one of each of the card bases, you can actually just make them all the same and have them all white. And then I'm going to be using lots of the contents from the kit. So I'm just going to pull out all of these pieces. We're even going to be using some of the tissue paper. Okay, so I'm going to go through the supplies that you'll need for not the decorating part, so the base of the album. All right, so there are 3 card bases. I am going to take apart an envelope. So these are decorated envelopes. I'm going to take that apart and use that. That can obviously be replaced with pattern paper. And then there are 2 panels that are from the card bases that I'm going to use as panels. So this one measures about 3 3/4 by 4 7/8, and the corners are notched. And this one measures 3 3/4 by 4 7/8, same size. So those could be replaced with pattern paper as well. Then I've got my photo mats. My photo mats are 4 pieces of pecan pie cardstock that measure 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. All right. I've got a die cut rectangle that I cut from the textured notes. This is from Basic Beige, so this is one of the coordinating colors. So obviously you can cut just a plain rectangle, you can use a different shape, you can use whatever you want, but I used the 4th smallest textured note die. And then I've got a white piece of cardstock that measures 3 3/4 by 3 3/4, and that is going to be used right here for our journaling spot. The other thing I have is just a scrap piece of white to do a bit of stamping. And then I think pretty much everything else is going to come from the bits and pieces from the kit. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We are going to start by folding our card bases in half, so just along the score line. And then this one is going to be our cover. So you want to decide what pattern you want out. It's going to open like this. And then this piece, this is another card base, obviously. This is going to get attached like this. And then this last card base, so we've got this, if I can pick this up, is going to go like this. All right. So this is how it's going to get attached. So your middle card base will get attached to the right side of your front card base and the left side of your back card base. So when you fold it up, it's going to look like this. All right, now you'll notice that this sticks out ever so slightly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim about an 1/8, well, maybe not even an 1/8, a 1/16 of an inch off of this side. So I'm gonna go do that off camera because I do find those finer folds work better with my guillotine cutter than with my regular Stampin' Up! Trimmer. Okay, so that's gonna allow us to put that in there so now it doesn't stick out as far. Okay, and actually, you know what? I'm gonna trim a little bit off of this piece as well. So this is the back side of my front panel. So again, just a sliver off of that. Okay, so now that should allow us to slide that in there so that you don't see that extra bit out there. So we will need to do the same thing. I think we'll need to do the same thing for the back one. So I'm going to put it on there and just make sure. Yeah, so can you see when you line those up, you can see just a little bit of a sliver there. So I'm going to take this panel, this front panel of our back card base and trim a sliver off. And when I say a sliver, it's about a 1/16 of an inch. And then we'll test this out. And there we go. That is good. Okay, I'm happy with that. So, okay, now I want to take, okay, this is gonna open like this. We're gonna attach this, we're safe to attach this piece to this. So we're gonna go ahead and adhere this. I'm gonna use, I like to use a combination of things. So I'm gonna share my favorite way of doing this. So I like to use a little bit of a glue stick, a little bit of glue stick and multi-purpose glue. So a combination of the two. So I'm gonna flip this piece over and we're gonna add glue to this panel. And the reason I use glue stick is because I want it to adhere all over. I want glue to stick. I don't want there to be any kind of bubbles or wrinkles. And glue stick you can apply pretty evenly. And then I'm going to use multi-purpose glue kind of around the edges. So just a narrow bead of multi-purpose glue, and that's just going to make sure that that adheres nicely. And then we'll bring this in here. And we're going to line this up here. And stick this down. I do like to fold this just to make sure I've got it all lined up nicely. And then I'll fold that in. And then the other thing I like to do is I've got this left over from back when Stampin' Up! Carried their, I think it was their vinyl. That's when we had these. I like to give this a little rub. You can also use like an old gift card. You could use a ruler. You can also use your bone folder. I just want to make sure that that's adhered really, really nicely. Okay, so that is, those are our first two panels. Now, before we adhere this panel, so this panel will eventually get adhered to this, but before we do that, I want to do something to this layer. So this is where our tissue paper is going to come into play. I love to put our tissue paper to use. Oftentimes it's in gifts, but it doesn't always have to be in gifts. Sometimes I like to use it on projects. Sometimes I'll kind of crinkle it up and use it as a border. But I have recently started junk journaling, and so that has really taught me to look at my supplies a little bit differently and to really get lots of use out of them. So I've cut this piece so that it is larger than my card base, and I'm going to crinkle it. And then I'm going to take my glue stick, and I do recommend a glue stick for this because the tissue paper is so fine. Any other glue tends to seep out. So tissue paper or glue stick does work best for this. And let's bring back our mat. I don't want to glue on my table here. So I'm going to go all the way around, and you do want to make sure that you go over the edges. You want to make sure that you've really got that glue everywhere. And I'll go up and down. This is such a fun project. Easy to replicate using anything that you have on hand. Okay, so now I'm going to open it up, and this is where, okay, I'm going to try to find my straightest edge. I think it's probably this one. And I'm going to line that up with my score line, and then I'm going to push it down. And you are not looking for this to be perfectly straight. I mean, that's the whole point of us wrinkling it, right? So you want those creases in there. If you find that it's not sticking like that, just go back in with your glue. Add a little bit of glue on there and then adhere it. Okay, I love all these crinkles. So you can see when you don't have enough glue, you get these little bubbles like this. So I'm just going to carefully peel that back. I might not be able to get all the way up in there, but I will be able to get pretty close. And we're still missing a little bit here. Okay. All right. So now that is adhered. I'll just cover this over. Now we're going to take our scissors and we're going to go around the edges and just trim off the excess. Okay, so now we are ready to adhere this piece to this piece. And this is where we're going to do pretty much the same thing as what we did here. So we are going to, or on the green panel, so we're going to use our glue stick. And if you don't have glue stick, you can use tear and tape. You can use Seal adhesive or Seal Plus, or even multi-purpose glue. Just make sure, if you're using multi-purpose glue, make sure that it goes on in a thin layer, or use like a silicone brush to kind of even it out. You don't want it too thick. I do find that because this is a liquid glue, sometimes it goes on really thick and it kind of warp your paper. Okay, so now we're going to take this and line it up with our score line. Make sure I'm in camera here. Okay, and I'm going to fold this and then fold this over. Okay, and then bring in this piece and just give this a rub. Make sure you've got it adhered nicely all the way around the edges. Okay, so there is our base. Our base is put together. It's ready to decorate however you want. So I will walk you through how I decorated it. I just want to give that a wipe. I've got a little bit of glue on there. Okay, so we'll set that aside. I don't want to stick that in the wetness. All right, next up, we're going to take our envelope flap apart. I love that Paper Pumpkin often comes with envelopes that are patterned, because you can stretch the use of those. You can open them up and use them as patterned paper, or you could decorate them. Let me share, actually, while I've got my envelope up, let me share something else that I've done. So here is another envelope. Because I've used 3 card bases and only 1 envelope for this project, I had some envelopes left over. So what I did here was I inked around the edges using some pecan pie. I used a stamp set to stamp some detail on there. I used a sticker stamp on there. I added some lace. This is just some lace that I picked up at a thrift store. This is one of our die cut elements from a past ephemera kit, a die cut leaf from my stash. And then inside, I just have a couple random things. This was an old calendar that I found at our local Hodgepodge Lodge. This is some old DSP. I think it was DSP that we used to carry. This is a piece of DSP that we used to carry. This is just some stuff from my stash. This is an old piece of notebook paper. This is stuff from my stash. This was a really old pattern paper that we carried years ago. I think it was called, I was going to say Storybook, but I don't think it was called Storybook. But this was one side of the pattern paper, and I have a few little scraps left, not a lot, but I just can't get rid of it because I love it so much. So I just notched that, created a little pocket, and these are just some journaling spots. There's also on the back of this, because it was a calendar, it was lined. So I kind of cut off the dates, and that's a great journaling spot as well. This would be so cute tucked into a little junk journal. So that's another way that you can use some of the leftover pattern envelopes that you've got in your kit if you're doing other things with them. Okay, back to our envelope. We're going to take this apart here, and I just need to check my notes so I get the right size. Okay, we're going to bring in our paper trimmer. Now, I do find that my paper trimmer does not trim this type of paper very well. I think it's just because it's thinner, it kind of tears it apart. So I'm basically going to cut off this flap and this flap, actually all of the flaps, and this one. Okay, now we want to use this panel, but we want to trim it down to 4 by 5 1/4. So 4. And I always tell my customers, you don't throw anything away until you are done with a project, because you never know when a little scrap like this might come in handy. By 5 1/4. Okay, and then this piece is actually going to go in here, and we're going to create a flap, but we want to score it. So I'm going to score it at about, I don't think I measured. I think I'm going to do about 1/2 inch. So I'm lining this edge up with the 1/2 inch mark, and then I'll score. You don't want to push too hard because this is a thinner paper. All of these pieces will just get set aside. I don't remember if I used them or not, but we don't want to throw anything away. Then I'm going to fold along here. And this piece, like I said, is going to go on here like this. So, and we're going to center it. So like that. So I'm going to add some glue down here, and I'm just going to use multi-purpose glue for this. Actually, it might be better to add glue to this side. So you could also use tear and tape or Seal Plus for this. I'm going to kind of center it, fold over that flap, and just make sure that that's adhered nicely. Then I'll take my scissors and trim off this excess. Okay, and now this, let's hope it's the right size, and it's not quite the right size. Let's see, what are we gonna do here? Okay, so I had measured mine based on the size of the other one, but it looks like this might need to be a little bit different, although we could do it like this. We're gonna go with it. Okay, so this 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 piece of white, we are going to score it diagonally. And we're going to fold it in half, make it nice and crisp. And then what we're going to do is we're going to line this up right here, and we're going to adhere this, and then we're going to adhere it to this piece as well, and then we'll close it up. But before we do that, we want to do our closure. So if I bring in the sample, I decided to do this kind of thing as a closure. So just kind of running that around. So I'm using some product again from my stash. I'm using some brads. We haven't carried brads in a while. So I've got 2 brads here that I'm going to use, but first we need to stamp this piece of white. So I'm going to use some cherry cobbler, which is one of the colors that is in this kit. And let's just cover this over. We're going to stamp 2 of these. And then we're going to use a 3/4 inch circle punch, which is something that we carried years ago. You could also use a die. You could fussy cut around the star. All right, and then we're going to poke a hole in the center. Grab my paper piercing tool. We're going to do it right through the center here and here. And then we're going to do this one. So we're going to figure out where to position this. So I think we'll do it right about there. I'm going to poke it right through and then put my brad through the hole. And the reason we're doing this now is so that we can cover over that brad. Okay, you don't want to have it too tight. You want it to be a little bit loose. Okay, and then we're going to figure out where we want to position this guy. So I think right there looks good. Poke a hole through there. You could also use a Velcro dot or a magnet. I'm sure there's lots of, you could have an accent, like a focal point here, popped up in dimensionals and just have this flap popped underneath there. So if you don't have any brads in your collection, just get creative with your closure. Okay, so now we're going to take this piece. We're going to add adhesive to this. And I'm just going to use multi-purpose glue for this. You can use a combination of glue stick and multi-purpose glue, but this is cardstock, so it's a little heavier. But I did do just a light coat of this. So then this is going to get lined up. Right here. So like that. Okay, and then we're going to take this, add some more glue, and then fold that over. And this is a great little journaling spot. So you can see here, if I bring back my sample, I used a ruler and just a black felt and just drew some lines to add some journaling on there. All right, then we'll fold this over. It might need a little bit of encouragement here. Score that. Then we'll bring in some linen thread or any kind of twine that you'd like. And just cut however long you'd like it. And we'll wrap this around here, and you can tie a knot or you can just wrap it around a couple times. I'm just going to tie a knot, leave that end out like that. And I probably cut this a little too long. And we'll just go around in a figure 8 like that. All right. And there is our piece. We can bring that, or bring our base back and add this on here. So this is going to be centered. So you'll see an even border all the way around the edges. I am going to use a little bit of glue stick. It's tricky with that dimension from the brads on there. And then we'll go around the edges with our multi-purpose glue. And we'll adhere that on there like that. Just going around and making sure that that's nicely adhered. Okay, so that is that panel. And then we'll open this up and we're going to decorate each of our panels with our bases first, and then we can work out the embellishing afterwards. I think it's time to refill my glue bottle here. Okay, so this is going to go in here just kind of centered side to side in the top and bottom. Same with this one. Okay, this one is going to go on here, but I'm going to hold off adhering it for now. And then on this side, we're going to do, this panel is going to go on here. And we'll center it. And then one of our photo mats on each of the two sides. So one on here. And one on here. Okay, and then this one is going to go on here. This is going to be our front panel. So far, the only thing that I've added that was not included in the paper pumpkin kit is the pecan pie cardstock for my mats. 3/4 inch circle punch, a little bit of extra white cardstock. However, you could always use the back of one of these envelope flaps, stamp and punch from there, the linen thread, and that little piece of white cardstock. But apart from that, everything else was in the kit. Okay, so that's the base of our album. So that's what it's going to look like. Now we're going to work on decorating it. But before we do that, we're just going to do some stamping. So when you purchase a paper pumpkin kit, or in your paper pumpkin kit, you always get a stamp set. So we are going to use this stamp set this time. We're going to pull out all of our pieces that we need. So we're going to use that. Pop this out. And we're going to use one of these. So this is for our Merry Christmas. This is for our Deck the Halls. And then we're going to use the ornament, the joy, this little ornament holder. We're going to use this star. And then we're going to use these pieces. This is going to create our Christmas tree. These pieces, we're using lots. And then that's the rest of our ornament. Okay. All right. So we want to do our stamping first. So these are the 3 pieces that we're going to stamp on, and we're going to use 3 different stamps. We are going to stamp in pecan pie, and we're going to do Joy to the World right here. We'll do Deck the Halls on this piece. And Merry Christmas on this one. And like I said, just to keep things simple, I kept the focal points the same as the cards. They're or very similar. I did make a couple slight adjustments. I think that looks good. All right. That's all the stamping that we need to do. Now we are going to bring in, we're going to work on our front panel first. So we'll slide these pieces aside, and we're going to need these pieces here and our dimensionals and our mini glue dots. So in the kit, you also get the adhesive that you need. So I believe this month you got tear and tape, dimensionals, and I think you got tear and tape and mini glue dots. Maybe you didn't get tear and tape. I can't remember. All right. Oh, my nose is all runny. I apologize if I'm sniffling lots. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip these pieces over. We're gonna add our dimensionals first. So we'll do dimensionals here at the bottom. And then we're going to put mini glue dots. Where's my paper piercing tool here? At the top of each of these pieces. You might find it strange that we're combining the two, one flat adhesive and one regular adhesive, but you'll see why in a moment. Okay, hopefully I'm still in camera here. Let's move this aside. Peel off the backing on our dimensionals. And I'm going to start with the bottom. And we'll peel off the backing on our mini glue dots as well. So at the time that I'm filming this video, the kit, the full kit is not available. However, you can get a refill kit for this, but you can only get a refill kit if you are a Paper Pumpkin subscriber. So you'll definitely want to subscribe. If you live in Canada, I will have a link in the description below where you can find more details on subscribing. Okay, so now to adhere this, I'm looking to line up the top bit of this into this little groove right here. Okay, so that's going to go on there, and then we'll push that down so you can see that it's raised here, but then it's flat at the top. Okay, if we had put dimensionals on the top part of each of these, then we'd have to put a double layer of dimensionals on this part. So that's the reason for the mixed adhesive. It keeps it kind of level and also saves having, if you're making the cards, having to pay extra postage to pop it in the mail. This would definitely need extra postage if you're popping it in the mail because it's quite thick. All right, now we can add our star. So we're going to add a dimensional to that. Pop that on there like that. And then we're going to add our Merry Christmas. We're going to use a dimensional on this side. And then some mini glue dots on this side because it's going to sit on top of this raised portion. And that will go right here like that. And then we're going to add a few sequins. All right, so there is the front of the album. Now we're going to open this up and we're going to work on this panel. So this is the back. Right, so if we open it all the way, this is the panel we're going to work on next. And so we're going to use this ornament, and this gets added on top of here like this. So I'm going to use some mini glue dots for this. So we want flat adhesive. Actually, I'll use a couple mini glue dots on each side, and then I'm just going to use multi-purpose glue in the middle. All right, and then this goes this way. That's going to go on there like that. Okay, and then this is going to go on here, but we're going to add, actually we'll add this on here first. We're going to use a mini glue dot to adhere this just to this piece here. And then I'll add some dimensionals to the back of it. So that's going to go on there like that. And then we'll flip it over and we're going to add some dimensionals to the back. So I'm going to add it over top. That will just make sure that it holds. Do one in the middle. Okay, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of multi-purpose glue to this bit here, just so it's not flapping. And then we'll position this on here. Like that. I think that looks straight and even. So I have it hanging off the top a little bit, but I can trim that. Then we're going to add the deck the halls. So we're going to use a little piece of a dimensional, kind of in this bottom corner here. And then we're just going to, just to speed things up, we're just going to use a little bit of multi-purpose glue. And this will stick over the edge, but you do want to be mindful, you don't want to go over that score line. All right, and then we will add some embellishments or some sequins. All right, and then we can trim off this excess piece. And we just have one more panel to do. All right, so there's the back panel done. Isn't that pretty? Wouldn't that look gorgeous sitting on your mantle with some cute little photos in there? Okay, so for this one, this is where we're going to do a little bit of altering. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my pieces. I'm going to slide this up. Actually, I should just make sure that I am still in camera. Yes, I am. Okay. All right. So we need this stamped piece as well. So I'm going to use some multi-purpose glue. You can use mini glue dots. I'm just looking out my window. It is actually snowing. All right. So that's going to go on there. And then our O. On there, and our Y. Okay, and then now if you bring in, so this is a little bit too big for on this card front, because if you look at the card that it's intended to go on, it's landscape, whereas we're doing, our project is portrait. So we have to do a little bit of adjusting. So I'm going to take my snips and I'm going to cut this little flower out, and then I'm going to cut this little flower out. Okay, but you don't want to get rid of those. We're still going to use those. So this will shorten it, shrink it down so that we can make it fit. But then we also need to trim these too, because otherwise they're too big. So I'm just going to trim around this piece and then this piece as well. So, and I used one of these leaves and two of these ones. Okay, so this is going to be an extra piece. You can add it somewhere if you want. Okay, so this piece is going to go on using dimensionals. So we'll add that. Oh, actually, before we add this, we want to add this panel. So I felt like just having it on here, it was a bit too much. It felt like it needed something just to kind of ground it. So that's why I cut this panel. So this is an extra piece that is not in your kit. So that's going to go on there like that. And then we can add this. And I'm not going to push this down. I'm just going to gently place it down because I want to do some tucking here. So I'm going to use my bone folder and kind of curl this up a little bit. Add just a little bit of adhesive to the back. And then this is going to get tucked under here. And then this piece is going to get tucked under here like that. So again, I'll just kind of curl it up a little bit. But you don't want to have it hanging off of the edge. Make sure that it's kind of lined up with the edge or in a little further. And then this piece is going to go down here. So again, I'll kind of curl that up. Pop this under here. And then this flower is going to get tucked here. So it's not a full flower. It doesn't look like it's very usable, but if you strategically tuck it, nobody will know that it isn't a full flower. And then we'll bring in our sequins. And we're going to add a sequence to the center of our flower and then a couple down here. Okay, and then we have this one flower left. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add glue to it. I'm going to stick it up here, and yes, you can see that it's not a full flower, but once you put a photo on here, it will cover. So your photo will be 3 by 4, so it's going to cover this. So you'll only see 1/8 of an inch. So it's going to cover that there's a leaf missing there, or a petal missing there. So then it won't be noticeable. And there we go. Our album is finished. So here is a little flip through. You can either flip through it like a book. And we've got our flap here for journaling. So you can flip through it like this. Or you can have it standing up like this. So this is what it would look like if it was standing on your mantle. And here is the back. Isn't that fun? So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little mini album created using 3 card bases as the base of the album. And if you use this idea to create something of your own, I would love for you to tag me when you share it online. I always love to see what you guys create using my projects as inspiration. All right, so thank you so much for joining me today. I will have a link to the blog post where you'll see photos of this project in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. And if you are not yet a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.